Hello and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn, and this is going to be my first real video where I offer some feedback and some commentary on somebody's IELTS speaking performance. I saw this video on YouTube, and the examiner gave the candidate 5.0, and then for some reason on YouTube it's written that the examiner received 5.5, but I think her performance level was higher. And so I want to look at this. I want to look at this performance and give you some feedback, give you some thoughts that go through my head as an examiner. Let's get into it.
Um, let's begin part one. First question, can you fix things?
Okay, I think I'm going to speak a lot here. This isn't the way that IELTS exams start. Usually, the examiner will introduce themselves, they will say what their name is, they will ask the candidate for their name, they will ask the candidate where they're from, they will ask the candidate where if they work or if they study, and ask them some questions about this first, and then they will choose another topic. It could be fixing things or free time or holidays or something like this. Certainly, the exam will not start with question one, are you good at fixing things?
Um, I haven't tried fixing things, whether that would be like tools, but I guess some parts I can fix things.
Okay, first impressions are very important. Of course, in IELTS, the examiner has a lot of criteria that they're expected to know. This criteria helps us to understand if a candidate is a 7.0 or a 6.0, and of course, there are four different criteria. There is fluency and coherence, there is lexical resource, which is vocabulary, there is grammatical range and accuracy, grammar, and also there's pronunciation. But this is a lot for an examiner to think about. I don't know if you know this, but as an examiner in IELTS, you don't have time to listen to a recording, you don't have time to even to sit and think for a long time. Basically, as soon as the test is done, the candidate leaves, and then the examiner has to fill out a sheet saying what score they got for each one. So it's very difficult for the examiner both to speak, to ask the questions, to maintain conversation, and also to remember every detail, which is why impressions can be very important, and sometimes impressions can be just as important as your language level. Of course, good language will always win. But the first impression of this candidate is that she's a little bit quiet, she's a little bit shy, she hesitates a little bit, she has kind of uncomfortable, awkward body language, and so an examiner might pick up on that. Now, of course, we want examiners to be objective. We want examiners to measure the candidate's language performance, not to notice, whether they smile or have positive body language. But we are all human, and we are all affected by such things.
Okay, question two, did anybody
I don't. Question two: did anybody teach you? Again, that's not how examiners behave.
teach you to fix things when you were a child?
Uh, yes, my parents have told me to when a chair wasn't working in particular way, they just told me to use certain tools, just taking some things out.
Okay, so a mixture of good and bad. Again, she's a little bit hesitant. She hesitates in the middle of a sentence, but she does produce good language, right? A chair wasn't working, past continuous, in a particular way. It's a very nice way, in a certain way, in a particular way. This is an adverbial phrase. It's good grammar.
Out of the toolbox and just told me to fix certain things.
I like this. The toolbox. The toolbox. It's very natural American pronunciation. This toolbox, box, this R sound is very. She hits it perfectly. This individual vowel sound, and throughout this test, over the whole test, her pronunciation features are really, really natural and good. And we will look at examples of this.
Question 3. Do you think it is necessary for people to learn to fix things?
Oh, it's too mechanical. Right? Is it necessary for people to learn to fix things? I don't want to say anything bad about this person. I don't know if she's a trained examiner or an experienced examiner. Maybe they just really needed somebody to ask some questions on this day. So, I don't want to criticize her, but I think, as I understand, so this is through IELTS English Academy. You can find them on YouTube. As I understand, the candidates pay to have these practice tests. And so, especially if the candidate is paying, you should really give them an authentic experience, a real experience. The examiner doesn't have to be 100% perfect like an examiner would in IELTS, but you want to be close to this. I don't like the unfriendliness of the tone. Um, as an examiner, of course, sometimes we are robotic. We have a role to play. We just must ask the questions, especially in part one, and wait for the answer. But I still think you can be supportive and you can be more positive. Like, do you think it's necessary for all people to learn how to fix things? This is much better than, is it necessary for all people to learn how to fix things? Um, and I think maybe the candidate is a little afraid. Maybe.
Absolutely, because it's in minor inconveniences can happen in like any moment.
Very nice. Minor inconveniences. So not small inconveniences, but minor inconveniences, showing an awareness of style, which is part of the criteria for lexical resource. I will make videos about all of the criteria because I think it's useful for you to know. But minor inconveniences, very nice natural collocation, combination of two words.
So I think it's important that people learn how to fix certain things on a certain level.
Nice. It's important that people learn how to fix certain things. It's a very complex grammatical structure that has the subjunctive. It is important that people learn how to do something. Nice knowledge of infinitives. It's very accurate grammar. Very accurate.
And question 4. What do you do when a thing is broken and cannot be fixed?
Um, if the thing is cannot be fixed, I guess
If I'm very fussy here, if I'm very strict, maybe I don't like the way that she repeats the examiner's question, or she repeats the words in the examiner's question exactly, right? If something cannot be fixed, what do you do if something is broken and it cannot be fixed? And her response is, if something cannot be fixed. And, I think she could paraphrase a little here. So the question, you notice, is in the passive. If something is broken and cannot be fixed, you could just change this to the active. Well, if I can't fix something, I usually tra-la-la.
call the like the pro- the company of the product and then like tell them what to do, or ask them if I could like ask for like maintenance.
Nice little embedded question. Ask them if I could ask for maintenance. She also uses this word like a lot, which is a filler word, but it's good. It's better than silence. Right? There's a huge difference between I play football and I play, football. Those little filler words, they are disfluencies, but those are natural disfluencies that L1 users or native speakers use.
Okay. We'll begin part 2.
We will begin part 2. Okay, cool.
And for part 2, you'll have 1 minute to prepare what you'd like to say and 2
there are scripts, right? As an examiner, even as teachers, you can find the scripts online about how you should give the instructions for each of the parts. It's not difficult to find. Again, I don't know if this lady if this is the first time that she's doing it, and perhaps she feels a little bit uncomfortable, but I just think it's such an easy thing. Learn the scripts and be an examiner. But okay.
minutes to speak. The topic is useful invention. Describe an invention that is useful in your daily life.
Okay, so what are we looking for in part two? Well, part two is a long turn, so as I'm sure you all know, the candidate must speak for between 1 and 2 minutes. Now, lower level learners often find it difficult to speak at length. Usually, with lower level learners, the 3.0s, the 4.0, and maybe even the 5.0, they tend to repeat their ideas a lot. So they can't fill the 2 minutes simply because they think, I can't think of anything more to say. Higher level learners know how to develop and extend their answers, and so this will be interesting to see how this candidate manages it.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes. One of the invention that I like to often use is a cooking gadget for avocados. And what it can do is it looks
Nice avocados. So nice American. What it can do is, this is a cleft sentence, this is C1 grammar. What it can do is, it's so nice.
like a round blade, like a
Blade. Oof.
plastic blade that kind of cuts through the avocado and then makes it makes the peeling easier, and
Peeling, again, it's very, I don't know a lot of intermediate students who know the word to peel.
especially for the seed, the pit part. And
Pip, so maybe a lot of people know the word seed, but pip, it's good stuff.
it was pretty popular, like it was viral on like all platforms or social media.
Viral and platforms on social media, again, very natural language.
And it's pretty much straightforward because you just
It's pretty much straightforward. I love that adverb of degree. It's pretty much straightforward. It's so nice. Not just, it's quite straightforward, but it's pretty much straightforward. Very American. It's high level stuff. It's certainly not level 5.0 in terms of language, but more on that later.
just cut through the avocado and then take the pit out. And
So maybe one small thing about body language. Usually, not always, but very often when students are having difficulty explaining with their words what they mean, they often start using their hands to show it. It's usually a sign that, I'm worried. I'm worried that the other person cannot understand what I'm saying, right? It gives an extra level to the communication. So that often happens when students are not very confident, but not always.
it's pretty easy to use. And
Pretty easy. Again, I like it. Pretty easy. Not just very easy or quite easy, but pretty easy. Nice.
the reason it is useful is that
Another cleft sentence here. The reason it is useful is that. This is C1 grammar.
it takes it reduces the time of peeling the avocados, and so it's easier for people to just access it right away.
Okay, sounds like she's finished speaking now. She started at 2 minutes 11. It's now 3 minutes 20. So, I always recommend taking the full 2 minutes. She's been speaking now for 1 minute and 1 minute and 10 seconds approximately. I think she should speak more, and this is only about planning. In that 1 minute stage you have before your talk, you have this chance to plan, and certainly if I was coaching her, we would do a lot of these part two tasks so that she would feel what 2 minutes sounds like, and I like it when my students speak for the whole 2 minutes and the examiner must stop them. Or if they can speak for 1 minute and 59 seconds, perfect.
Yeah, I think that's it for now.
So she breaks down and she looks down, and this isn't positive, she looks down. I think that's it. At least she gives this rounding off sentence, this sentence to show I've finished now. So, she broke down, but she did have, again, a lot of positive features in her language. Her pronunciation's great, her vocabulary is great, her grammar is great. The only problem she has is fluency.
Okay, thank you. But let's move on to part 3.
Let's.
What qualities do inventors have?
I think inventors need to have a lot of creative thinking.
It's good. Creative thinking. It's a very natural combination of words.
Obviously, because
Nice little adverb of comment. Obviously, because
in order to like invent things and then
wonderful discourse marker in order to invent things, not just like if they want to invent things, but in order to invent things. And she chunks that with the pronunciation very naturally. In order to, not in order to, but in order to. In order to invent things. She's good.
they need to they need to approach things, problem solving strategies in an
Problem solving strategies. It's nice. My intermediate students do not produce language like problem solving strategies.
like a creative way. So I think
Again, we get that adverbial phrase in a creative way. Very nice.
um, thinking of things in like a different perspective, different lens is important.
She starts the sentence with gerund, thinking of things in a different way with different lenses. It's nice, is very important. So, okay, starting a sentence with a gerund is an A2 pre-intermediate piece of grammar, but IELTS examiners kind of like that stuff.
Do you think only scientists can invent new things?
Not necessarily. It can be
How amazing is that? Not necessarily. It's so nice. Not necessarily. Um, if you are B1 students, do you use the term? Not necessarily. Probably don't. My C1 students don't use not necessarily, but it's so nice.
anyone, or maybe like whether that would be like a homemaker, like a stay at
Whether that would be like a homemaker, look at these terms, a homemaker, or I think she uses stay at home mom.
home mom, for example, that can create certain kitchen tools.
Okay, so it's all right, right? Not only science. The question is, can only scientists be inventors? And she says, no, stay-at-home moms or homemakers, they could be inventors too. They could create or invent like kitchen tools or something, right? Which is okay, fair enough answer. A little bit short for part 3. Maybe she can extend it a little bit further. Part 3 should be a discussion, so there should be some more interactive communication between the examiner and the candidate. So I would expect a good examiner here to ask a follow-up question, right? A natural follow-up question would be, well, you mentioned that stay-at-home moms could maybe invent some kitchen tools, or do you know any examples of this? Or what other kinds of people, apart from scientists and stay-at-home moms, do you think could be inventors, right? That would allow the candidate to extend her answer further. And in part 1, this doesn't happen so much. Maybe the examiner can ask why. But in part 3, they have more freedom to ask more questions to allow the discussion to continue, because part 3 should be a discussion, not an interview.
What inventions do you think?
She's a little bit terrifying, and I'm sure as a person, I'm sure she's not terrifying. I'm sure she's absolutely fine. But it's noticeable, I don't know, it's noticeable for me that this is kind of awkward. It's kind of uncomfortable.
Think should be improved?
So the question was what kind of inventions should be improved, or can you think of any ways that some inventions could be improved? So this is, I think, her weakest point. She's just broken down now. Her brain is frozen. Now this happens to all of us. I'm sure you've all been in these situations. Someone asks you a question, your brain goes blank. You cannot think of anything. You cannot think of something to say, and you freeze. And especially, she knows that she has a camera on her. She knows that, IELTS English Academy has how many? 389,000 subscribers, and this video has 6.5 thousand views. Probably some of those things are going through her head that, oh, I can't think of something, this is so embarrassing. Of course, with some coaching, with some training, it's not so difficult to fight your way out of it, even if you give an answer that is totally empty with coherence, you can still score some points with grammar and vocab, right? So if you have a question, let's say you have a question, let's take this exact question. Can you think of any ways that some inventions could be improved? Improving inventions, it's not really something that I think about. I think, as they say, nothing is perfect, and so everything probably can be improved, but it's kind of difficult for me to think of an example. Like, if I just think of any invention, like maybe my mobile phone, like, could it be improved? Well, yeah, actually, maybe the battery, maybe this could last longer, or sometimes my phone is a little bit slow, and so if my phone was faster, this would be an improvement. But I can't really think of many examples, right? It's You're verbalizing your thoughts instead of having the thoughts in your head, thinking, "Oh no, I can't think of an answer." Use your words to say that, and usually, if you start speaking, sometimes an idea can pop into your head, but we certainly don't want to sit in silence.
I guess in terms of um,
Hey, she's trying. Mhm. And this is, you can see the examiner writing something, and it's painful. But it's okay. Say something.
I
Just say something like, "I'm terribly sorry, but I don't think I can answer this question. Perhaps we can move on to the next question." Be brave about it. I understand that if you're a candidate, you're sitting with an examiner, there is, whether it's real or not, there's certainly the feeling that as the candidate, you have no power and the examiner has all of the power. The examiner is a native speaker. The examiner is strong. The examiner decides what mark that you can get. And so you often feel like you can't ask them questions or you can't suggest anything, but that's not true. Say something, apologize, and move on to the next question and try to forget about it.
think maybe the cost of the financial cost and the accessibility from that perspective, it can be improved. And um, yes, that's it.
Are there
Yeah, so not a very coherent answer here. So when we talk about coherence, we mean that the idea is easy to understand. We mean that we get an answer to the question. So I like to explain coherence like this: that if I ask a candidate a question, like "What do you do in your free time?" Candidate gives me an answer. I could go out of the room. My friend could ask me, "What does she do in her free time?" And I would be able to give that answer, knowing 100% that that's what they do in their free time. Right? That's what coherence is, or rather, it's one aspect of coherence.
any other inventions that make the world better?
So I think the candidate here is still worried about the previous answer. I think still going through her mind is probably, "Oh, I messed up. I made that huge mistake." Now, if any of you play chess, you probably know that making a mistake in chess is not what makes you lose the game, but it's the way that you respond to the mistake. So once you make one mistake, then you are so busy thinking, "Oh my God, I can't believe I made that mistake," and then you continue to make mistakes. And I think she's fallen into that problem here.
I think in terms of, um, for example,
She likes this in terms of, she's used it quite a lot, and I like it. I like the way she chunks it together, but perhaps she's used it a little bit more, a little bit too much. Maybe she could try using like "regarding" or "when it comes to" or "as for" something. So certainly, if I was coaching her, I would look at increasing the flexibility of that. So I love in terms of saying like, "This is what I'm speaking about," but it's not the only option, and demonstrating more variety of vocab and grammar and discourse markers is very good.
education, there are certain online applications that make education like more widely accessible.
Oh, very nice. Widely accessible. Very nice compound adjective.
and for people of all ages can like learn things in like a new creative way, like Duolingo or other like language related apps. So I think yeah, that's one
Other language related apps. It's good.
of the easiest
Even though she's obviously upset and disappointed at her previous answer, she's still producing high level stuff.
example that I could think of.
Do all inventions bring benefits to our world?
Most of the time it's mostly positive, but sometimes it can be not fully effective, or and it can be sometimes negative.
Yeah, so again, a very underdeveloped answer, right? Oh, it's usually positive, but sometimes it can be negative. Well, give examples, right? If you think of negative inventions, well, my brain immediately goes to like military inventions, like atomic bomb, nuclear bomb, chemical weapons, things like this. Maybe she doesn't know about this, but she can also speak about mobile phones or the internet, how overall these things are positive, but they can, for example, make people lazy, and that she could have more to speak about there if she gives examples.
Who should support or sponsor inventors, governments or private companies?
I think both. From the government side, they can foster um, regulations or
I don't know about foster regulations, but I like that she knows the word foster, and you know, talking about regulations connected to government is topic specific vocabulary, which is always good.
um, new laws related to scientific inventions, and private companies
New laws related to. This is an omitted relative clause, not new laws which are related to, but new laws related to. Again, sometimes students can find this type of grammar even though they don't study it, but for somebody like me who's spent a lot of time teaching this beautiful English language, and I used to teach grammar a lot, uh, identifying some of this very high level stuff is very impressive. Very impressive.
can sponsor or um, become catalysts um, in promoting scientific invention.
Okay, so it takes her a long time to get out there, but become catalysts in promoting scientific inventions. Again, I don't know about the other B1s in the world, but my B1 students, my 5.0 students, do not make sentences like this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm ready to give feedback.
Okay, usually that is the end of the test. Is a nice way to end it, but okay. So before we listen to the examiner's feedback, I'll give my own very fast feedback. Um, So strong points, vocabulary amazing, certainly 7 or 8. Grammar amazing, certainly a 7, possibly an 8. Pronunciation strong. The only thing that she really lacks is maybe the rhythm, and that is affected by the fluency. So certainly there are things that fluency can negatively affect pronunciation, but she has a lot of positive features in her pronunciation. The phonemes are almost perfect. The way she drops, like absolutely, she drops that T, not absolutely or absolutely, but absolutely. That's a very common feature of American English pronunciation. Um, Pronunciation has to be a 7. And then fluency is a 5. So fluency, she hesitates in the middle. She has to repair. She has to reformulate. She has to think a lot about the constructions that she's using. So, and she breaks down. There are critical breakdowns. So a very harsh examiner might even give her a 4 for fluency, but I don't think she deserves 4. I think 5 for fluency. I think she deserves at least 7 for grammar, at least 7 for vocab, and at least 7 for pronunciation. For me, this performance is a 7, and the examiner gives her a 5. But the most critical thing now, the examiner, a good all of the feedback, all of the negative feedback should only be about fluency and coherence, about making her develop her answers, trying to get her to have more confidence in her answers, perhaps having more positive body language, all of that stuff that makes a good impression. But let's see what feedback she gives her.
So I'll start with
The best thing is the examiner starts with the word which is just wonderful. Listen again.
so I'm ready to give feedback. So I'll start with the band score. I'll give you a 5.
The reason this is funny for me, you will see it very soon.
In terms of part 1, fixing things, you were very clear and concise.
Okay, so she's giving feedback in like, okay, part 1, this was good, this was bad. Part 2, this was good, bad. Part 3, this was good, this was bad. I don't think that's really what this candidate needs. She needs to be told that her fluency is weak and that's what she could improve, but she also needs to be told that her grammar is incredible, that her vocabulary is incredible, and that her pronunciation is incredible.
With explaining how you were able to fix something and who taught you how to fix, your mom and your dad. You paused a bit though during speaking,
right,
in part 1.
Okay, we all pause a bit, but I agree that is a negative point, that she hesitated mid-speech, and it was hesitation not because she was looking for an idea, but hesitation because she was looking for the right language.
And just one comment throughout your whole speaking is using
right.
So the examiner herself uses She's used just in this feedback part 3 times.
Try to use less of the word, but it was hard, I guess.
Actually, trying to eliminate would be best.
Yeah.
Trying to eliminate there's no point. Nobody can eliminate I have education as a linguist, and part of this we have to do discourse analysis, which means looking at how people naturally use language, looking at these disfluencies. And what we find is that L1 users use a lot. They pause a lot, they interrupt a lot, they repair their own language a lot. These are natural disfluencies. Would her speech be better if she didn't use at all? Perhaps. Is that the critical problem in her speech? No.
It's completely eliminated, right?
Using shows the listener that you're not too sure what you plan to say.
Yeah, this is speech, right? When you speak, this is a spontaneous use of language. It is not a planned use of language, and so we aren't always sure of what we want to say. That's okay. It's a very natural part of unplanned, spontaneous language use.
However, if you pause for a bit and then understand what you would like to say, that is actually better.
I disagree. I think her problem is that she pauses too much.
Better in terms of providing a clear answer. So just note that.
Okay.
And part 2.
I think the examiner's fluency is also maybe not the greatest. I don't know.
So part 2, you mentioned the cooking gadget. The word gadget is not used very often.
I cannot believe that in all of that test, I think the test lasted 10 minutes. So the first bit of feedback was that some of her answers in part 1 were clear. Okay, most people's answers in part 1 are clear. It's useless for the candidate. The second one is to eliminate the use of which is impossible. And the third most important thing that this examiner wants to give feedback on is that this candidate used the word gadget, a kitchen gadget. Okay, kitchen gadget, is it the most precise piece of language? Maybe not. I don't know how to call this avocado peeler or this avocado thing, gadget, tool, instrument, not quite a utensil. I don't know, and I think gadget is absolutely fine here.
actually.
Okay.
So, I
Like a tool? Should I just?
Tool is fine.
Cooking product actually would be better
Okay.
in terms of
I don't know about cooking product. To me, that sounds even stranger than kitchen gadget. But I think this is a big problem with a lot of teachers that they don't know and they feel uncomfortable saying I don't know. I'll put my hands up and say, I'm a linguist. I'm a very experienced teacher. I've trained lots of teachers. I don't know what category, what noun I would use to describe an avocado peeler. If I would call it a gadget or a tool or an instrument, I'm sure there's a word there, but I don't know. And I certainly wouldn't, especially on camera with thousands of people watching, say that no kitchen product. It just sounds strange. If you don't know, say you don't know. It's okay, and it's so unimportant.
gadgets. Those are usually more technical devices. So some type of cooking
Okay,
product.
then fair.
And your descriptive detail, so vocabulary there for part 2 are very good.
Okay, please give her some examples.
And how you explained why it's
It's useless feedback. This was good. This was bad. Please give examples. It helps the candidate.
useful and how you use it.
Mm-hmm.
The descriptions were useful. Again, examples. It's empty feedback.
In terms of part 3, though, part 3, it seems you did not understand some of the questions.
I don't think that she failed to understand the questions. I think the problem was she couldn't produce an answer. I think she came up with an unfamiliar topic, which in part 3 you will often get unfamiliar topics. They are questions that you don't think about very much, like to what extent should governments fund theatres? I don't know. I don't think about that. I don't know much about, political policies and things like this. And I think that's the problem, that she simply doesn't have experience of dealing with those stressful situations, which again, she could be taught or she could be coached to do that better. It's not that she misunderstood the questions.
So starting with question 2. So question 2, do you think only scientists can invent new things?
No, she understood that. She said that not only scientists, homemakers can invent kitchen tools. So she understood the question and she gave an answer. It was just underdeveloped.
Well, yes, you agree and you don't agree. And you mentioned
No, she didn't say yes, she agreed. She said not necessarily.
homemaker.
Okay, tell her at least that homemaker is a wonderful vocabulary item, no?
And question 3, what inventions do you think should be improved? You provided no.
I agree she provided no real answer to that. Again, that doesn't mean necessarily that she didn't understand the question, which is the feedback that you're giving her. It just means that she didn't produce a coherent answer. I agree that was weak. That was her weakest part.
Specific
Her weakest part in part 3.
example of an invention, for example, phone or car or even pen.
Mm-hmm.
So certain example would have helped.
I don't know why teachers always talk about pens. It's like if I think of a countable noun, like a pen, we always do it. It's just something we always do. Notice it in your next ESL class, in your next language class. Notice if your teacher mentions the word pen.
But for question 4, you mentioned online applications. I assume you mean online application, like apps?
Yes, apps.
So learning applications.
Learning applications.
Okay. Then
I don't see what that feedback is. Using applications instead of app is fine.
in terms of giving a title, learning application would be best.
No, an example of some learning applications like Duolingo, I think she said. I don't know if that's is when you watch the candidate's performance in this test, do you walk away from this thinking, oh, I think she used applications and she should have used application as an uncountable noun? Is like who walks away from that test thinking that this was some, she needs to understand that learning application is better than learning applications. I don't even agree.
Question 6, though, at the end. So, who should support inventors, governments, or private companies? So, I did like your answers. Um,
Um, it's not enough to say I did like your answers. Give meaningful feedback and be precise if you can.
you mentioned creating new laws. So, those were actually
Mhm.
good specific details.
Okay, so she liked the answer. Maybe this is something good for coherence. But again, I think the examiner really should give details about the four different criteria, right? Students should know where their strengths and weaknesses are. Are they good with fluency and coherence? Are they good with grammar? Are they good with vocab? Are they good with pronunciation? Which one of those are they bad at? I'm sorry for repeating myself, but it is obvious that this candidate is certainly C1 pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary. She is not C1 with her fluency and coherence. And she needs to be told this, and she needs to be given examples of her poor fluency and coherence. And if you want to offer her some coaching, it should be coaching, tips, advice, strategies of how to deal with questions that make you feel uncomfortable or questions that are unfamiliar. That's the key information that this candidate needs, not kitchen gadget shouldn't be used and kitchen product should be used. It blows my mind.
But the main thing to try to avoid is using Okay.
You have to get it in right away. The main thing is to try to avoid using them.
You're speaking. Thank you for coming and great job.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, 5.0 is what the examiner gave. 5.5 is what's written on the YouTube video. You can check this video out. I know maybe it's difficult to watch the video when I'm interrupting all of the time, but the YouTube channel is IELTS English Academy. You can find this video. If the candidate, I don't think anyone will watch this video, but if the candidate sees this video, please get in touch with me. Get in touch with me on Twitter. I will give you a free IELTS speaking exam, and I will also give you a little bit of coaching if you like for absolutely free. Anyway, thank you if you've stayed until the end of the video. Congratulations. Have a wonderful evening, day, afternoon, wherever you are, and I will leave it there. Thank you very much. Bye bye.